Welcome back to another episode of the Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is one of my brothers and friends from LA. His name is Hector. He's also known as Puma. Puma is a workshop facilitator, a ceremonialist, and a medicine carrier. Puma, it's a great honor to have you. Thank you for joining the Spiritual Teachers
Mm,
Podcast today.
Thank you, brother. Looking forward towards our conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. So today we're just gonna cover a little bit of Puma's awakening journey. Then we'll dive into potentially some plant medicine conversation, and then we'll talk about ancient ceremonial instruments. So, Puma, I would love to start out by hearing about your awakening journey.
Thanks. Thank you, bro. Yeah. It started in 2012, let's just say, and um, I was in a period of a transitioning period where my that live at that moment where where I was living prior to my seeking wasn't serving my soul, and was feeling like there was a lack of something, like a lack of purpose. So I would say I was going through a life crisis where I felt confused. I felt, what is my identity? I felt like just doing a lot of questioning. And I took it upon myself to initiate, to look and seek what's out there beyond what I'm already doing, which was going out, right, to party. I was hanging out with a lot of with my high school buddies at the time. And we were just, doing just things that my higher self, or maybe my inner child, or my inner self was kind of over it,
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going to different visionary art galleries, which at the time that was new to me, like super fractalization paintings, and like all these sorts of really cool paintings. And so
Wow.
potentially that's how my curiosity peeked into consciousness
Mm-hmm.
and spirituality more. Prior to that, I did experiment with psychedelics, and stuff like that, but it wasn't as conscious. It's more creational, recreational. And so that helped me to open up a little bit, but it was more that moment of realization of self, of like, okay, I like right now I'm questioning everything here.
Right, right.
And so I ended up going to an event, and this man was offering a book release about his spiritual awakening. I went
Mm,
to this event, all these conscious people, about, just an alternative way of looking at life.
hmm
And I've resonated with what was happening there. So there was a woman there in the register, like in the front, and I was like, how do I how do I get involved into this, into this community?
hmm
And she pointed out to two individuals, uh, two good friends of mine actually, who became really good friends, and they're like, here, join us. Next week there's an event, and it's about ceremonial music. And
Mm,
that's how I met a community, and saw a whole different way of living, of like conscious health, spirituality, connection, community. And that's how my journey started unfolding that year, 2012.
hmm
And it started to fractalize into different experiences, opportunities, and healing. Um, so, yeah, that's how my journey, my awakening started, my spiritual journey.
Beautiful, beautiful, brother. Yeah, that's really fascinating because the art was kind of what sparked something inside you, right? The A lot of people don't talk about that too much, right? Like there's so many amazing artists out there that take something from another dimension or from these deeper experiences they're having and then put it into a canvas and bring it into this reality for people to start to remember, you know? And I think that's fascinating that that was part of your experience. And yeah, LA's got a pretty big, like a pretty large spiritual community now, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does, and it has flourished since 2012. And for a lot of us, that year was a catalyst in a collective consciousness way. And I think that's where a lot of us, a momentum started to move forward in the collective spirit of spirituality and seeking.
Yeah, for sure. For me, 2012 was a huge year too.
Hmm.
And, according to the Mayan calendar, that was kind of the end, right? Like 12/21 of 2012 was supposed to be like the end of the Mayan calendar, right?
It was supposed to be a end of an era, like an
Right.
end of a like an old consciousness and birthing into a new consciousness.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that so many of us kind of quote unquote came online, like had started our awakening after that. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I'm here. And looking back at it, I was doing the same thing. I was partying, I was drinking with my buddies, I was going out, and it just completely shifted all that. Like
Mhm.
I just started to have a lot less interest in that and started to see that there was like a whole nother world available and that alcohol and that kind of lifestyle was actually like repressing me from my fullest potential and my highest timeline in this body in this life, so that's really cool that was the year it kind of all started for you too. So you told me a little bit about your background, right? You were born in Guadalajara.
Yeah, Zapopan, Jalisco, which is essentially right next to Guadalajara.
Hmm.
And and I grew up, and for the first 5 years, I was born in Zapopan but raised in Guadalajara because I
Okay.
have all my relatives there,
Uh-huh.
uh, aunties, and my aunts, and from my mom's side and dad's side. So yeah,
And,
it's
and so you also told me that you have some Huichol uh, ancestors.
right. Yeah, so as I kept growing and into my calling, into my purpose of um who am I, right? Who
Mhm.
am I? Where do I come from? Um, and as I kept growing, I like to say second life. So after 2012, I was looking at things like from a curious boy, like wow, everything. So and evolving into who I am now throughout the years, right? I was like, yeah, wondering, like tapping into my ancestors, and so I asked my family, my parents, what so do we have, or where, do we have a connection? So yeah, from my mom's side, she did mention that we have we have a connection to the Koras. And so the Kora is a sister tribe from the Wixarika that we told. So it's like, for example, uh, the Rarumara, and then the Kora, and then there's the Wixarika, aka Huicholes, and they're a sister tribe. So it is said that many years ago, many years ago, the Wixarika, split. Some of them went to the further into the mountains, um, and and created little other tribes, which are now known as the Koras and the Rarumaras, and then obviously the mother culture, which is the Wixarika. So that's what my mom keeps referring to every time. Like I'm like, where do are we have a connection to a tribe or whatnot? So, and yeah, she keeps referring to the Kora. So that's something that I can refer to.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. I mean, the Huichol have the most amazing art. They do that really small beadwork that they put onto like a car they'll carve out a jaguar head and then put little beads on it, and it just looks so amazing with the completed product. And they also do this string art, right? Like where they will use string, and the whole painting is just made out of string and these bright colors. And a lot of times they have deer and hummingbirds and jaguars and all kinds of native animals native to South America, right? And Central America. And
Mm.
it's so beautiful. And a lot of times there's like a moon or a sun involved in the paintings. And um yeah, I think for me, the Huichol art is some of the most beautiful art in the world.
Yeah, here, real quick, I have a here, real quick.
Yeah.
This is so this is how it looks, right? So
Yep.
they use beeswax,
Okay.
and then that they put the beads, and
On
it's
top
like
of the
a
beeswax.
yeah, it's like a mandala. I would
Right.
say it's a mandala. So
Hmm.
what they do, there's a lot of intention, really a lot of detail, right? And
Hmm.
it's like, and then same thing with the string. There's like they, it's like the in Mexico, like in the collective, like the tribes all have like a symbology, right? So they get the macro, which is the bigger cosmovision, of how what the spirit moves, what the story of creation is, and then they embed it into their paintings, and everything has a symbology, right? Everything
Yeah.
has a symbology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything has a meaning. Everything's like very deep
Mhm.
in the paintings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one a larger one I got that I want to show you after the podcast. It has like all kinds of things happening on it. There's like little people breathing out fire and all different elements on it. So, yeah, it's really fascinating art. I'm such a huge my whole life my mom really was an artist, and she got me really interested in art. And I think indigenous art is some of the most beautiful art in the world. And that intention and that beauty, the love these people put into the art is just fascinating.
Definitely, definitely, 100%.
And there it's a meditation, right? Like because it is like a mandala, you can look at it, and especially if you're on plant medicine probably, and have like a really deep connection, and it deepens you into the experience.
Yeah. I want to share a quick story where a couple years ago I sat in my first Wixarika ceremony, and prior to that, I was sitting up in the Native American church and in Colorado, and so I moved to LA to back to LA after that. I was in a 4 year period in Colorado living out there and sitting out there.
And
But
studying
when I
with them.
yeah, it's sitting in Lakota style TP ceremony, which there was a lot of beautiful lessons there, beautiful community.
Hmm.
But when I got here, I got the opportunity to sit with the Wirarikas, and it was a powerful realization because the similar elements within the Wirarika structure of ceremony, right? There's the fire, and then the importance of water, the importance of the feathers, and the candles, and there's just and the prayer and the chants, and so I don't know. It was just like I was like blown away. I was like, wow, this is the or like this is where it all comes from,
Mm-hmm.
comes
Mm-hmm.
from this particular ancient tradition here. And the similarities are like obviously they're different structures,
Mm-hmm.
but the core essence of the ceremony of like the water and the fire and the feathers and the prayer and there's like similarities. So it's just like wow, it's just I was like I'm super honored and I got a deeper appreciation towards the culture, my both cultures and traditions and where I come from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's I mean, it's so can you speak a little bit about what that ceremony looks like? So just for new listeners, right, who don't know about these types of ceremonies, just to break it down, right, like for somebody new, the Lakota tradition, they sit with what's called an inipi, right? And the ceremony you're talking about, they have a temazcal, is that correct?
So the Inipi it's a sweat lodge, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also known as a temazcal in Mexico, but here in the north, up north here is it's known as the sweat lodge, aka or Inipi, aka sweat lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the culture as well is the TP ceremonies, right? So that's a whole different ceremony within itself. There's a lot of structure there. Um,
And usually there's plant medicine involved with the TP ceremony, right?
and TP ceremony, yes, right. So yeah, they work with peyote,
Mm-hmm.
with peyote, the sacrament peyote, and with inipi, not necessarily. Inipi is more tied in to within itself.
Mm-hmm.
And right, so the Inipi, the sweat lodge, has the little dome, which represents the womb and represents the earth, the cosmos, the void, and then the fire represents the sun, and then there's a moon. So all this, and then the grandfathers within the fire, right, also have represent ancestors, represent um, ancient the Wakantanka, that's the Great Spirit, Tonkashala, the grandfathers.
Mm-hmm.
So every time the grandfathers throughout the years when we use the rocks, they break, then we put them on the side of the crescent moon. So that
Mm-hmm.
represents the crescent moon. So coming back to the cosmovision of the reflection of the universe into manifestation into this reality, right? Honoring the the flow of the heavens or the flow of the mystery of the universe, right? Into ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like a microcosm of the galaxy happening in this ceremony. Uh so when you sat with the um with the tribe, right? When you came back from Colorado,
Okay.
what was that ceremony like? It was also an EP style.
No, so yeah, so the ceremony I was talking about when I came back from Colorado is the Wixarika ceremony, is the we told ceremony. And for that ceremony, how it's structured is first they have sticks, little sticks that we use to cleanse ourselves, right? Actually, even before the ceremony starts, what you do is like you're kind of confessing yourself
Mm,
to the fire. So it's like before we even start the ceremony, you get to cleanse your mind, your thoughts, and your heart, and you get to forgive yourself and forgive and any past relationships that might be lingering in your mind or anything like that. You cleanse yourself with sticks, and then you offer it to the fire, so
is it
that
is it a specific type of stick, like a Palo Santo, or it can be any stick?
it's any stick that's locally from that area.
Okay,
So it's like it's used to help cleanse and help heal.
okay.
And so you do that, and then you offer it to the fire, And also we're in a circle, and every time somebody goes out the circle throughout this night to, either get well or go to the restroom, every time you come in, there's a doorman, there's a person that's going to give you another stick. So before you go
Mm,
in, you cleanse yourself, and then you put the stick into the fire, because the intention behind the ceremony is to, as much as we can, keep it pure, right? So
hmm
whenever we go out, there could be lingering energies. So the Maracames is the medicine man who is running the ceremony.
hmm
He it's all about like that, being conscious and aware of the energy.
hmm Okay, so the stick is absorbing any negative energy, anything that is no longer serving the individual, placing using the stick to absorb that, placing it in the fire to be alchemized and transmuted back to creator or back to the earth, whichever
Hmm.
way it needs to go. Okay, so and then inside the ceremony, there's traditionally plant medicine used.
So with this tradition is definitely the peyote, the hikuri, right? So the sometimes they serve powder, or sometimes the whole button, right? So it
hmm
goes around, and we're all eating together, and then there's chants, incantations that are sung by the maracame, um, and throughout the night. And then there's a period, I think it could be after midnight. There's a period where, after we're doing our work, after we're like praying, continue to focus our intention and our prayer, um, we do the deer dance. And
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, what that means is like continuing to move the energy, because the blue deer is really important to the Maracamas, because they say that it helped them find the medicine as well, and in their creation story, and
hmm
how they found it. So we all get up, and there's the Maracame has a tail deer, and then he's in the front, and we all like go around and then do the dance.
Beautiful.
And then we sit back down, and we do that a couple of times throughout the night. Um and and then there's a period where there's candles, right? So candles is another representation of it, where they do a blue and a red candle. One is for the waters and one is for the land.
Mm,
So that candle goes around, and we tie it we send a good prayer, one for the waters and then one for the property and the earth.
hmm
And also quarters and money are involved, right? For abundance, and just part of the reciprocity of the Aini, of like the Mother Earth and us.
hmm
And so that's another process that goes around throughout the night. But the candles, when the candle comes around, we all bring a candle, and we hold the candle, and it's lit from the altar. And then we uh, light our own candle. We help each other to light the candle. And this was a powerful moment. This is probably the most important part of the ceremony. One of the most important part of the ceremony is because you want to hold the candle, as like if your life depends on it, right?
hmm
So your focus or intention is to keep that candle lit,
hmm
and you want to keep focus with your prayer, and the maracame, the medicine man, is singing, and then we go through this process for about 10 minutes. So you're there, and are trying your hardest, if we're outside, these ceremonies are done outside, for the most part, for outside in the elements. And then after that, the Maracame finishes his canto, his Icaron, and then we, set that down, and then we continue the prayer. So you get to take that home, or you get to offer it. Um, and then the ceremony continues, and then towards sunrise, right? So we start probably like around 9 a.m. and it goes all the way to the morning sunrise.
Oh wow. That's
Yeah,
oh, so pretty much 24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah.
Wow, that's a long ceremony.
Yeah, it is, and it has a lot of teachings. It has a lot of teachings. It's a school of life. They call it school of life in these ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, I've never experienced this type of ceremony, but it sounds really, really beautiful.
It is, yeah.
It sounds really beautiful. Um, I had a question about the deer, right? So, in this tradition, the blue deer came and um, can you speak a little bit about that? And then I know the white deer is also really important, right? What do you
Hmm.
know the difference between the blue and the white deer?
Honestly, I haven't heard of the white deer.
Okay.
That could be something new for me. But part of the part of the like the creation and the story or finding the hikuri is that the deer that the tribe, I might be chopping it up a little bit, but from what I can remember is that there was a time where the tribe was having difficult time, and they saw a deer, and then they were following the deer. They saw like a sign, right? There was a sign, and also like they do these pilgrimages. It's deep actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they do the Wixarika pilgrimages where they say life started, the creation story started. So that's why they do these walks, these pilgrimage to the mountains, where they originally found the hikuri. So
Hmm.
the deer was the one who guided them to the peyote, to the
Okay.
hikuri.
Hmm.
So that's why the deer is very important too, right? So it's like they refer it as the blue deer because like there's a lot of songs and a lot of like stories, but um they hunt the deer too. So
Hmm.
like as they hunt the deer goes and it leaves the footprint, and then that's where the peyote is found. So
Mm.
when they go to the pilgrimage, symbolically, they shoot an arrow, and that's where when the arrow lands, that's where the peyote. So they go and harvest the peyote like that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so deer is really important, and in that particular cosmovision of like the ceremony.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of the significance of the buffalo in North
Mhm.
America. You
Good call.
know, there's a similarity there because the buffalo to a lot of native tribes is so sacred because it gives everything, right? It gives meat, it gives the hide for clothing, for blankets, for the sweat lodge, for everything. Then they use the tendons for making drums. They use the skin for drums. I mean, every piece of the buffalo, the bones are carved into tools. Every piece of the buffalo is used, and it reminds me of that sacredness of the buffalo with the deer. And I wonder if the original story was it a blue spirit of a deer that is the story, or what's the do you know where the blue color comes from?
The blue is just represent. No, it was. I believe it was actual deer.
Okay.
And actually, I'll get to that right now. But so part of the ceremony, like traditional ceremony, you don't really see it here, but the maracame goes and hunts a deer.
Okay.
And if he is successful in hunting a deer, then that means that the ceremony is going to happen. So they're going to manifest the ceremony. If they can't hunt a deer, then it's not good to do ceremony. So they won't do ceremony.
Oh, interesting.
And then traditionally, if you go to the tribes, they sacrifice the deer in ceremony.
Oh,
Like I've seen it. It could be intense for some people if they're not ready. but they make um so yeah, they sacrifice the deer and then the blood there, and then they bless the candles, and there's this whole ritual. It's even a
Wow.
little deeper than that. Um, but the deer, yeah, the blue deer, it's just represent it's a represent it's let me slow down. The blue deer is essentially the spirit of peyote.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think other tribes in South America uh have I may be wrong, but I think that some of them have the white deer because um on my medallion that I received after ayahuasca,
Hmm.
there's the white deer on it, and it's tied into to the peyote.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, I'm really fascinated with creation stories. So yeah, this
Mm,
is really interesting. And the white deer is really rare. It's like an albino deer, right? And as a kid, I'll just share a quick story. As a kid, I was growing up in the Midwest in Detroit, and and it's kind of like such a beautiful story looking back at it because there was a small island on the Detroit River right across from this like huge city, right? With like all this pollution and all kinds of stuff, right? And then there's this little island right across from it on the Detroit River. And for whatever reason, I don't know how, but there was a tribe of white deer that lived on this island.
mm,
And I remember I visited there several times, and I just with uh, with being so young, I was probably like 11, 12 years old. I still felt this like sacredness from these white deer. They were just so majestic and so beautiful, you know? And to me now, looking back at it, they like represented the light in this city that was had a lot of dense energy, you know?
mm. Cool. Yeah, that reminds me of yeah, there's the white buffalo calf woman, but
Hmm.
then there is a prophecy of the white calf uh birthing in here in the plains in the North American plains, where it the white calf represented like healing to the nation, healing to the tribe, and a new beginning.
Hmm.
Uh, because right, so it is an albino or just a white buffalo that also represents like something new, a new change. So that was really a prophecy that has been said, and it has been happening within a general crowd of buffalo. There's a white calf buffalo that is being born, and so that's a good sign. So that story that you mentioned about white deer kind of reminded me. So it's interesting, right?
A lot
Inter
of Yeah, a lot of interconnectedness. Now that you mentioned the white buffalo, it's fascinating because last year in 2024, I went to Zion for the first time,
Hmm.
which is also like very representative, right? Like Zion is kind of a word for in Jamaica in particular, it's a word for like heaven basically, right? Going to Zion and right by there was I got to meet and interact, not like touch, but I was right there with a male, a female, adult white buffalo, and a baby calf.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
special, man.
it's really beautiful, man, because they're very honored on this land, and there was some prayer flags hanging and prayer ties because the native tribes would come, and it's one of the most sacred. It is the most sacred animal to uh, a lot of North American tribes, and so that was such an honor. And then last weekend, um, I went to Arizona, and there's this place called Bearizona where
Hmm.
it's 180 acres of land, and on this land they have these large sections of the land that are fenced off, and they have the animals wild on the land, and so they have much more space to roam and graze and things like that. It's still not the most ideal. I wish they would have more land,
Mm.
but it was a larger enclosure than the place by Zion, and there was actually like four or five adult white buffalo there, and
Oh, man.
two white buffalo calves. And I was like, and we got to drive by and be even closer to them because it was just the car window and the car door that was in between us that time. So
Mhm.
it was really sacred to be amongst these beautiful beings, and they're so they're so majestic. And the buffalo is one of the only animals that will walk into the storm. Like when there's a thunderstorm or a rainstorm, they will actually go through the storm to get to the other side instead of running away from it, which most animals do. And it's such a deep representation of how, we have to face our fears, we have to face our traumas, we have to do that inner work and go into the storm inside ourselves in order to get to the sunny side on the other side.
Mm. Yeah, the buffalo is really powerful symbol for out here for the nations in the north here. And they yeah, abundance, right? So also, just a little side note for ceremonial Sundance, what they do, they still do, and they've been doing that since Sundance. They sacrifice a buffalo.
Hmm.
So they go to the fields and they hunt for a buffalo, and they use, like you're saying, every single thing for that particular ceremony, and that's how they feed the community.
Hmm.
So they do a stew, right, and a big stew that's going to feed the supporters when they go to the dance in the arbor. I mean, there's it's really powerful. And but yeah, just to add to the symbolism and the power of the buffalo, right, because they made their homes, their hides and everything, like you were saying. And also part of the tradition, whoever goes and hunts, because I met a few brothers who experienced that for Sundance this past couple of years, and it's taking a bite like from the raw, I believe, heart or liver. I think it's from the liver,
Hmm.
just fresh, straight from the buffalo. Like you take a bite of it as a blessing, as well.
To like connect to the spirit of the buffalo.
Exactly, connect to the spirit of the buffalo, that strength, right? And yeah, and they're majestic. Yeah.
That Yeah, it's so beautiful. One of my really dear brothers danced in Sundance for the first time last year,
Oh,
and
nice.
and so he invited me to support him. And I spoke with some of the organizers, and they said that they go to this Amish farm that's local there. So, the buffalo have a really good life. And what they do is they camp out for 3 or 4 days in the pen with the buffaloes. And eventually, like on the third day, usually it's a male buffalo that will actually step out of the herd and walk up to them and bow his head.
Mm,
And he sacrifices himself for the tribe and for the people. And I thought that was such a beautiful experience and story because this buffalo is so aware and intelligent that it knows that it's giving its life to feed the people of the Sundance ceremony. And I mean, they're massive. They're like some of them get to like twice the size of a cow, the males. And so they definitely feed the the several hundreds of people that come to support the dancers at the Sundance. So yeah, it's so beautiful. I've been out to uh South Dakota, to the Lakota people, and to the Black Hills, to their
mm,
land, and the buffalo are just free roaming there, and it just was so beautiful to see how America used to be. You know, the buffalo were everywhere, just free roaming, and it's a really sad story about how so many of them got slaughtered in such a way. But I think the populations are growing now, and things are really turning around with that, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And yeah, it's a beautiful energy, even having a like, buffalo drum, it's really powerful too. It's a symbol, of strength and connection for
Yeah, well,
sure.
speaking of drums, man, this is a great time to transition because one of the workshops that you lead in LA is helping people connect to the drum, right? And connect to those ancient ancient medicine instruments that have been around and are still around in so many cultures around the world.
Yeah, yeah, the hand drum is a powerful tool. And like you said, it's been a symbol for a lot of cultures, which especially coming in from like the shamans or the medicine men, music is a big part and chants are a big part of the culture.
Hmm.
And utilizing the drum, um, actually I think it's the oldest, not that I think, but it's definitely the oldest, one of the first instruments that has been brought to the tribes and the culture all over the world.
Hmm.
And within that, it has many functions, right? So I'm just going to share, for example, um, yeah, coming back to the teepee, there's a water drum, and then there's in the powwow, there's the grandfather drum, and in the Sundance, there's the same, grandfather drum there as well. In this Aztec or Mexicans dances, there's the huehuetel, right? Huehuetel is like the oldest spirit, which is the drum. Um, So the drum represents a lot. And yeah, and so for the workshop is about relationship. It's about understanding what the symbol, what it represents, right? What is the drum represents, because um there is no right or wrong answer, and here now I'm sure like the spiritual foundation of, or one of the laws of the universe is like the duality.
Hmm.
And it means that there is no right or wrong way of doing things,
Hmm.
and it's up to you of how you present it, how you feel. But there is a certain way of doing things, right, that can improve a relationship or improve a connection to a certain, instrument or a certain way of thought.
Hmm.
And this way, like, you know, if we have a drum, it's important to know that it has a spirit,
Hmm.
right? Because the animal, whether it's a buffalo, a calf, or a deer, elk, right?
Hmm.
That hide goes on the drum and it has a spirit. So we want to come in from a ceremonial perspective. From a ceremonial perspective, what is ceremony? Ceremony is having the perception and seeing things as everything being from divine. So everything being from divine needs to get honored, right? Especially animals who sacrifice for the support of the connection to spirit and
Hmm.
the evolution of the spiritual earth spirituality, right? And so the drum represents a big, it comes with a lot of energy. It really, if you understand the connection and the cosmovision behind it, it represents a lot, right? So it's good to bring in a awareness or perception of smudging your drum, right? Like having that connection and building that relationship, always carrying the drum right next to your heart, right? And then um you're well, I'm lefty, so I beat with my left hand. But if somebody isn't with the right hand, you get the drum right next to your heart, the heart center, and you play from there,
Hmm.
right? Also, the drum represents creation. The drum represents all that is the void, and then from the void comes in sound and vibration, and then from sound and vibration is creation. The way I was taught is that the drum is the egg of the egg, and then the beater
Mm.
is the sperm, and
Oh,
then
wow.
together the sound, that's when you manifest and creation comes to life.
Oh,
All
wow. That I've
is
never heard that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's like that, bro. And so it also comes in even before we're born, is the inner drum. So we're
Hmm.
in the womb for 9 months. It's like a water drum,
Hmm.
right? So we're here, we're growing inside the womb, and we're in water.
Hmm.
And then the heart of the mother, if you go underwater and you hear people talk, it sounds like, it sounds different.
Hmm.
Now, if you hear a drum, it kind of sounds far away, but it has a subtle rhythm to it.
Hmm.
So when we're in the womb for 9 months, that's what we're hearing 24/7, 7 days a week till the time we're born. You're
Mm.
hearing this latido, subtle heartbeat, dum, 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 dum. And
Hmm.
it's embedded into the DNA of the fetus. And so that's why the drum represents, you know, the womb too. So and also we have so in my workshops, I also like to emphasize that the voice is a connection too. It's
Hmm.
really important because when we're in the womb, as much as we hear the drum, we hear the vibration of the sound of the vocation, right? They
Hmm.
say in sound healing, they say that uh, like God created, or creation was a voice and vibration. So when we're in the womb, we're hearing tonalities or vowels, maybe like talking, right? So that's another part of why I like to say there is a more than ever, there's a collective consciousness of our ancient DNA trying to wake up, trying to sing that ancient voice. And
Big
there's a
time.
lot of us who want to express, and it's a natural thing to express and be heard and hear our voice and hear what the thoughts are
Hmm.
and the song that we have that our soul wants to sing.
Hmm.
So we in the workshop, I like to emphasize that um, you know, on a side note, I also teach a flute workshop, but with the flute, it's the melody of the soul.
Mm.
But with the drum is the song of your heart, of
It makes
feeling.
sense because it's the heartbeat when you drum too, you know,
Exactly.
and that's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing to think that the heart of the mother when you're inside the womb is like a drum, like beating, and you hear it, and then when you come out and you receive your first drum, now you can create that heartbeat for the planet and for the world.
Yeah. And intention, right? And intention is really important for healing modalities. So it's for example, our cultures around the world have songs and music for from before the day you're born, from creation to the time you're dead and beyond.
Hmm.
There's songs anywhere from between and beyond. And there's an intention behind it. So there's a song to honor, to honor life, a song to honor death, a song to honor family. So when we're connecting with our drum, we want to play for maybe for a minute and gather your thoughts. And then once I have the thought, then I get to start to explore the sound of my voice and my
Mm.
intention. So what is the intention that I want to offer this prayer? Intention essentially is a prayer to your healing or whatnot. And then that's where you start to channel or be open to what you're receiving. What is that song and that melody, right?
Hmm.
Of the song. Um, So also the drum represents the creation story, right? Or the four cardinal directions as well.
North,
Um,
south, east, west, right?
North, south, east, west, Father Sky and Mother Earth. It's it's a whole encompassing like the whole cosmos essentially, right? And
Mm-hmm.
each direction has a purpose as well, right? Summer, spring, winter, fall, and it has like mental, mental. East is spiritual, south is mental, physical, and spiritual, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so all those teachings are embedded into it, right? So when we that's I like to emphasize in the workshop that so it's important to me, it's important to share a little bit more background. So so the first part of the workshop, I'm just sharing a lot of information, different types of drums, because it's good to have awareness. So by the time we have our own drum, we want to play, there's that awareness of like what it represents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So also vocal activation. So it's a lot of different, we work with a lot of different like exercises activating the vocals and being sensitive to the range of vibration of activating this chakra, this energy center.
The
And then
throat
we
chakra.
the throat chakra, and then we move into different rhythms. And there again, there's no right or wrong answer in the rhythm. Like even somebody can go and just to nature and find their own rhythm, right? So, but there's like three fundamental natural rhythms that we all do, which is a heartbeat, dun 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 dun, and then which is the straight count, dun 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 dun, and then there's like the three count, one, two, three, and then four count, one, two, three, four. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the general. And then within that, you could create your own song. Like it's a different combinations of creating your own song. Um,
And there is a very specific beat that different medicine men use for like soul retrieval and for going into the underworld, the upper world, the middle world, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's at least it ranges from 70 beats per minute to 120 to 120 beats per minute. And that is more like yeah, for a shamanic journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a monotone sound. What that means is just like straight beat. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like
Toot, 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 like that, right?
yeah, and now people are getting creative, so they add, more melody into it. But traditionally, you just want to go straight,
Mm-hmm.
like straight, dun 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 dun,
Mm-hmm.
because it starts to harmonize. It's like syncing both the left and the right, and it starts to go into a from beta to delta, then delta theta
Mm-hmm.
brainwave.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you start receiving like the messages and start connecting to spirit and your inner world and your outer world. That veil is thinned.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I did a journey once, and I remember in my vision, I was in it was in the night. I was in nature, and I was laying down. And this was with the drum beat, with the
Mm-hmm.
drum beat. So I was laying down, and then I saw my flute dancing around me.
Oh wow.
My flute was dancing. And then I saw the flute having the different colors of the energy centers, chakras.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a snake going around.
The Kundalini snake.
Yeah. And and then my drum came in.
Oh
Then
wow.
the drum was dancing, and both instruments were dancing around me, and there was a fire, and there was this whole connection. And it was like if I was having a vivid dream, you
Wow.
know, and and I was like, this is yeah, it's powerful when you enter a trance, So and that's what traditionally some of the shamans would do is a patient will come in, and then what it happens is like the shaman will guide the patient, the client into a trance, and they both will sync.
Mm-hmm.
So the job of the shaman is to go into the neutral vision of so they both, the client and the shaman, enter a neutral vision, and they're both in that dream. I'm just gonna say a dream just for um reference, just like, hey, and then the shaman guides the visualization, and that's where the shaman would be like, okay, come with me. So they're both going into this journey together, and together the shaman starts to work on an energetic level, bringing pieces of the individual back into their soul, back into their body. And then, I mean, there's more to it, right? Because it just depends on the client. Maybe there's like a dark energy, so the shaman has to do incantation and call in other animal guides to move through that,
And
and then
clear
there's,
it.
yeah, and clear it. There's this whole cosmic energy happening on a deeper level like that.
Yeah,
But
man.
yeah.
And I what I learned with one of my teachers is that when so what my teacher, he just uses the drum. He doesn't use any um medicine and no plant medicine during his journeys. And ori originally he guides us to go down into the underworld. And what he really wanted us to clarify about that is the underworld isn't like a hell. It is where the animals, it's the dimensions where the animal spirits are. And so that's where people go to retrieve their power animals, their spirit guides. Um, and so, there's this whole process he would guide us through verbally to go down. There's visualizations and things to go down into there. And then when you're down there, you start to just connect and call in your spirit guide, and you ask, right? You ask because there's trickster energies too that can come in and pretend to be your power animal. So, but they can't lie to you. So when you ask, they have to say yes or no. And so the first time I went down there, I saw this giant bear, like this
Mm.
big grizzly bear, and I remember he took me on his back, and we like ran through these fields, and there was this deep connection that I made with the bear. Another time I went down, it was with the tortoise, with the turtle. And the turtle has been one of my main spirit guides my whole life. And recently, about almost 2.5, 3 years ago, one of my teachers gave me my spirit name, which is Light Bear.
Mm.
And so it made sense because that was the first spirit guide that came to me when I went down there. And then another way to journey is in the middle plane, right? That's like on Earth, but that's not recommended that's that's only for people that are more advanced. And then going up to the upper world is where you connect with the angels, your angelic guides, your all those kind of guides. And it's a really beautiful place where I went and I met several of my guides
Mm.
like that aren't necessarily they're not from this plane, they're from a different dimension, from a higher dimension than this place. And these guides, they are with us all the time, and we can always call upon them whenever we feel afraid, or whenever we need guidance, or we want to call something in. They're always accessible to us.
Yeah.
So the drum is just such a powerful tool in so many ways.
Yeah, it sure is. It's a powerful tool, and it's building a relationship. If we all have one, if we all have one in the room, it's good to not have it in the garage, or, forget about it, just have it in your room at least, or in your altar, or on the wall too. You could have like a special part where it's like, okay, that's where it's at, and I could
Mhm,
reach it and
mhm,
tune in with it. And I would encourage your listeners to, if they have a drum, hey, every morning do a little. doesn't have to be a song. You could just, like I mentioned earlier, the intention is a prayer. So even if you could vocalize as you just do a single beat of one count, one, one, one,
Hmm.
like thank you for this life, blessings, creator, my spirit guides calling upon you to protect me, do a light, and then like just every day, if you could do that, that's beautiful blessing. And then it could start to transform into something more, something else, into a
Hmm.
song or into like vocal activation, right? Playing around with the tones, the mid, the lows and the mids and the highs. And yeah, it's good,
Well,
man. It's fun. It's
yeah,
fun.
I think that's an amazing thing that people can tap into, and I think that also, as you were talking, I was envisioning when the drum is being played, whatever the intention that you set before playing is vibrating out into the cosmos, right? So uh, it's like and then if you add your song to it, your voice, right? That makes it even more powerful, right? And it just like reverberates out into the cosmos, and it's received by spirit, and I worked with these people from Colombia, this tribe from Colombia, and they believe and they practice what's called pagamentos, or offerings and payments, right? And they believe that music, when played from the heart, doesn't matter if you have rhythm or anything. When it's played from the heart, no matter what instrument it is, right? When it's played from the heart, nature and Pachamama, the earth, can feel it, and the plants and the trees and the rocks, they love it, and it's like the best way to give back is by giving sound and music from the heart, because it's the best way that nature can feel and receive, you know? And it makes me think of that machine that recently came out, that you can like plug into like a leaf, or you can like clip
Oh
it
yeah.
onto a leaf or onto a mushroom, and you can hear the sounds and the music that's vibrating through it. It's so amazing.
Yeah, that's a cool machine. I've experienced that someone did like a sound bath with that. So they got specific plants and then they just connected, and then there was this whole really cool sound coming from these plants, and we were all
Wow.
down and receiving like just pure innocence, purity from these plants. Yeah. It's so cool.
It's so cool. Another thing, as you were talking earlier, like the songs, right? Like there's different songs for different parts of life: creation, birth, life, death, the afterlife, right? And one thing that some of the cultures in South America do, the indigenous tribes down there, is that actually when somebody dies, it's a celebration, and the whole tribe and the family will come together, and they'll actually all take plant medicine to take them into that next dimension through the veil, and they can actually help the person who passed on to go to the light and to transfer along. And when I heard about that, I was like, that is so beautiful, like what a way to help somebody's soul transition uh, in this way, in this sacred way, where all the people that they love are gathering together to help the soul transition on to the next stage.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. I haven't heard that, but yeah, I resonate with that. It makes sense, it's for a tribe, for a culture to go into these realms and help mediate the transition in this
Mhm.
in that particular way. And I'm sure you know that a lot of cultures, like death is understood as an integrative part of life, and
Mhm.
it wasn't shined upon, or it wasn't, like, oh, don't. death is bad. Not putting a bad rep behind it, but it was encouraged. It was not encouraged, but it was honored and
Hmm.
respected,
Hmm.
celebrated.
Hmm.
And on that note, like we've some people who have transitioned that are relatives of friends that I know, they before they passed away, they asked to sing honor songs, Sundance songs in
Mm.
their funeral
Hmm.
to help because that's how they want to, could leave Earth
Hmm.
with the Sundance songs and honoring songs. And um, so I've got invited to a few of those.
That's
Uh,
really beautiful.
yeah,
That's really beautiful because for those listeners that don't know, Sundance is one of the most intense and powerful spiritual experiences you could have on Earth, I believe.
mhm,
Because you're going for 4 days, 4 nights without food and water. You're dancing in the sun for many periods of the day, honoring and basically sacrificing your life potentially, like going into the Sundance, you're saying, I'm okay with dying for my community. I'm okay with sacrificing my life because if I die, I'm giving myself in honor of my community and the people I love, you know? And you go out there and you get connected to the tree, which is just such a beautiful representation of the community because everybody ties their prayer ties onto the tree. And it's a very specific tree um, called the cottonwood tree,
mhm,
which when you cut it, it has a star in the middle of the stump. And and that's why the Lakota people call themselves the Star People.
mhm,
One of the reasons, right? Like because the star, and they're so connected to the cosmos, and it's just such a beautiful way to honor the community because you're dancing to pray for all those prayers that the community put on that tree, and everybody is connecting and praying together for each other, you know?
mhm. Yeah, 100%. That's the tree. It represents that connection to Creator. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's really powerful.
There's so much more to it, but that was just a really quick explanation for people that don't know what Sundance is. And it's something that you have to be invited to, you know. It's a huge honor to go, and it's held very sacredly, and there's many layers to it, and um, it's like I mentioned earlier, it was huge honor to go support my brother that it was his
Mm,
first year doing it, and usually people commit to 4 years in a row, representing the four directions, north, south, east, west. And each of those years, there's a different initiation and activation depending on which direction you're dancing for that year.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
yeah, and Vision Quest is another aspect, right? Where
mhm,
usually there's a 4 year commitment to each direction, and most people traditionally do 4 years of Vision Quest before they do Sundance because you prepare your body for 4 days, 4 nights without food and water in nature, connecting to the spirits and to your ancestors and your spirit guides and to nature, to Pachamama. And just such a it's a beautiful initiation. I This will be my third year this year doing
oh,
Vision
nice.
Quest. Yeah,
Oh, cool, cool.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I've supported many years Vision Quest and been to a few Sundance and support too. I am Vision Questing this year as well. It'll be my second year.
amazing.
Um, Looking forward to that. Yeah, it's a lot of really humbling medicine there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first year I did it, it was I had to face some really deep fears inside
Hmm.
myself, and there was no denying that there's a whole nother world that we don't see here. You know, it's like there's so much happening that we can't see with our eyes all around us all the time, you
Yeah.
know. And it was very humbling.
Mm. Yeah, same, same. It was a lot. I could share a little bit of a moment that happened where I was like praying loud, and there was this little guy that like little I don't know, golfer I guess or something, but he was underground, and I remember going hard, right, like going like praying and praying with the chanupa, and then and something caught my eye at the corner of my eye, and I looked, and it was this little creature. He goes like this, and he looked, we made eye contact, and
Uh-huh.
he looks at, and he goes like, he goes back, and then he goes, he starts covering the hole with,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I thought it was a funny, I thought it was funny because he's like, "Man, you're too loud. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm out of here, covering the hole." It was a
Uh-huh.
funny moment. It was a funny moment for me. And I was like, all right, that made me laugh a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it also brings in that aspect of how it's not so serious. You know, like
Yeah.
you don't have to take life so serious is the way I interpret that. You know, it's like he's just like, get out of my house. What are you doing here? You know?
Exactly. He's like, hey man, you're too loud here. I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned Chanupa. For those listeners that don't know, that's like a peace pipe, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a peace pipe. It has a whole, it's part of the seven rites, seven ceremonies that come in to they gave was the Buffalo Calf woman gave to the Lakota Sioux people, and the Chanupa, it has two pieces, and it represents the masculine and the feminine, coming back to the duality, and it represents a vehicle in which you're and when you smoke the Chanupa, you're smoking for the community, but it's also for the prayer, and that is the vehicle in which the prayers go into the universe to creator and is received. um so that's its own ceremony. It's actually its own ceremony. It's carried with the Sundance also, but there's a whole separate ceremony specifically for the Chanupa as well. And it represents the most holiest of holiest tool, sacred tool for the Lakota. Just reason being because the Buffalo Calf woman gave them that.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, and you know, the smoke that comes out when you're smoking the chanupa, the peace pipe, the smoke is the prayers, you know,
Mhm.
going up to Creator, and there's different herbs like willow and sage and sometimes bare root and
Mhm.
um, depending on what the intention is and what the individual is working on, they'll add different herbs besides tobacco to the chanupa, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and the Chanupa, it's Chanupa Wakan, right? It's like it's a holy spirit, pretty much. It's like um and it has its, so again, it's not like anything else. I mean, I would just say it's just a Chanupa like like pipe, you know.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's powerful. I like those. I actually, the Sweat Lodge and the Chanupa ceremonies have been like my favorite ceremonies to work with and to pray with. Um, yeah, so it's a good one. Oh, right. By the way, you don't inhale, right? So if you're working with a Chanupa, like if you go to a Sweat Lodge or whatnot, you don't inhale the smoke. You don't puff it like a cigarette or anything. You inhale, you pray with it, you hold your smoke and then you blow it out. You never inhale it to your lungs.
Hmm.
That's another thing that I
Hmm.
was taught.
Yeah, that's a important piece to it for sure. It's and usually chanupas aren't bought. It's not recommended to buy one because some stores will sell them. And it's recommended to either be gifted one or to make it yourself or um, receive it in those ways, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you're doing Vision Quest, at least the way I'm receiving Vision Quest is that you ask somebody who has a chanupa to let you borrow their chanupa so you can pray with it. Or unless the medicine facilitator, or not medicine facilitator, but the elder who you're working with gives you one, you know, then you have the right to take it with you, not necessarily to use it as like you do your own ceremony. So there's another pipe for that, and that's a personal peace pipe,
Right.
which is different.
Hmm.
So the chanupa, again, it's specific for a particular ceremony that comes in the Lakota tradition.
Hmm.
A peace pipe, a personal peace pipe is a pipe that is doesn't have specific ceremony purpose like Lakota, but it can be used for community use
Hmm.
if the individual um has even with the peace pipe, there's a certain things that you need to do. I I I took some teachings from Tata Eric. He's a Mayan elder, and he initiated a couple of us to carry our own peace pipe, which we had to make. There's like offerings you have to do to the land, and
Mm.
this, and you have the choice to use it for yourself. It's like a personal peace pipe,
Hmm.
and you have the option. Yeah, if you want to share that energy with community, that's fine, but it's not like a chanupa. So I don't call the peace pipe a chanupa or my
Mm.
person, because it's just different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's different chanupas for different things. Like there's chanupas for mothers, chanupas for like the community, there's chanupas for fathers. There's different ones depending on who you're working with
Hmm. Yeah.
because they have an intention when they're built, right? To either be a community peace pipe, a community chanupa or a personal chanupa and so on and so forth, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really it's a and then there's I think there's seven um laws or how would you call it that go along with being a Chanupa carrier, right?
Mm. Um, just the way it was taught to me is that when you're carrying a chanupa, you're essentially making a contract with spirit to be in your highest form of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
So no partying, no drinking, no cheating,
Mm-hmm.
no lust.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have a partner, obviously no cheating, but you're a representative of the creator of purity.
Mm-hmm.
And as a pipe carrier, you can't fall into your habits. You have to be, at least that's the way I was taught, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
yes, everybody's different, but I resonate with that. I resonate with, if you gotta like think, or your thoughts have to be in the right thought, right speech, and right walk,
Mm-hmm.
and that has to be in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, no, stay like so yeah. If you're carrying a pipe, you gotta be the best that you can be for the people and for the community, right? You gotta be a good leader and a good example.
Mm-hmm.
um at least again, just for me, that's my perception. Like that's how I would want to use it for, or want to, like, if I ever get a chanupa. You
Hmm.
know, I got to keep in mind of those things.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's a huge it's a big responsibility, you know,
Hmm.
to walk that path, and these ways that we're talking about is referred to as the Red Road, right?
Yes.
Um and it's not the easiest path by any means, but it is a very powerful path.
Yeah, so like what is the red road? The red road for the Lakota Sioux, you know, it's essentially it's just a spiritual walk, a spiritual path. It's a ceremonial path,
Hmm.
you know, and it doesn't represent more than that. I've heard that there's a white road or there's a red road, like a black road, and have you heard of that before?
I've
I
heard
don't
of
know.
the Blue Road.
There's a blue road.
Hmm.
What does that represent? Because like I keep hearing like here and there, but I've never heard of that before. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I recently heard about it, and I don't know the details about it, but I know that it's been mentioned. Um yeah, it's interesting because, you know, on the traditionally there's the four colors, right? That represent the four directions: white, red, black, um white, red,
Yeah.
black, and yellow. And and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those other ones also represent other other paths, you know.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, for that's why you hear a lot of the red road, you know, because it's it's an important road to walk in beauty. It just represents a lot of ceremony, you know. Um, so that's what it means essentially is you're walking your spiritual path. Earth spirituality, essentially. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah, and one thing that once I found Sweat Lodge, man, back in 2012 actually was my first one.
Oh, nice.
And
Same.
when I found it, man, I was like, this is my favorite way to pray. This is my
Mm-hmm.
absolute favorite way to pray. There's nowhere I'd rather be than on the earth, inside of the womb of the mother, inside the womb of the earth, right? And there's every single piece of the ceremony has a deep meaning, down to down to where the willow branches are, and the ways that the lodge is created, to all the things you were mentioning, the crescent moon, where the grandfather rocks go after they've given themselves and they've broken inside the nipi, you know, and it's just when I found it, I just fell in love with it, and it's brought me down to my knees, you know, like I've had some huge ego deaths in there, and I it's made me it's humbled me to a really large degree, and it continues to.
Yeah. And same here. I found like my first sweat lodge and my first time sitting, you know, with Pat Madison was the 2012, and it the sweat lodge changed my life. I learned how to pray. I with the guidance of an elder in this red road, you really know how to be in ceremony. You really know how, like I've learned how to show up in ceremony, discern, like how to really honor and being in ceremony. Because yeah, there's specific protocols, and that's not bad. You know, it's good to have protocols, and within those protocols, there is fun and there is laughter.
Hmm.
You know, the foundation, like you get as you start, as I started showing up more and more and more in these ways in the red road, like I get to understand ceremony way of life in general, even if it's not in sweat lodge or in teepee, whatever, but there's that energy that I can put into my daily life. And there's certain things that like I can respect and honor in my life. And if I'm going to another ceremony, then I know how to behave or how to show up in a good way to support, be the first one to show up and the last one to leave, and support, in a good way. And so I've learned a lot of how to hold myself in a good way and be of support in a good way, and chop wood, carry water, and have a subtle discipline within ceremony. And that's not necessarily bad,
Hmm.
and um and
I
it's
think it's
good.
actually crucial.
Yeah, yeah, it's crucial. And take that into your daily life, and it helps.
Yeah, and one thing as you were talking made me think like we go into these ceremonies as individuals to quote unquote experience and suffer so that we don't have to suffer in real life. We go into these spaces that where we're praying, we're sweating, we're in these extreme conditions, right? Whether it's a challenging sweat lodge or a deep plant medicine, something that, for a lot of people brings up some fear sometimes. But we go into these places so that we can pray and then that can ripple out into our life and it's like a deeper spiritual cleanse, right? Like we have a responsibility to do an energetic cleanse every day, like a shower, but then this is more um like a ocean plunge, like something way
Mhm.
deeper where you just like get a bigger clearing and you get to really experience something so that it doesn't ripple out into our life.
Yeah, yeah, the purification lunch, that's what they call it, purification, because we're consciously experiencing the effects of the heat and the water, and and not what they say atlachinoli, which once the water touches the fire, it creates the steam, and that is where the purification, right? With prayer and all that. And yeah, 100%. Totally.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Well, it's been such an honor to have you on here, Puma. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Maybe we'll do a part two down the road sometime.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, man. I appreciate you so much for inviting me. And yeah, thank you. So much gratitude to
Th-
share.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Big love, man. Until next time.
Oh,
Aho.
next